Hello friends. Class 16. 1857 Revolt. On the 19th March 1857, Mangal Pandey at the Barakpur at Calcutta fired a British officer and his fellow sepoys refused to arrest him and all hanged him. On the 10th of May, Meerut sepoys mutiny and reached the Delhi on the 11th of May and proclaimed Bahadur Shah Jafar as the Emperor of Hindustan. He revolt aspired to the other containment in the northwest provinces and Awadh, and the civil population joined. The British rule collapsed from 11th May till the spring of the 1857. Delhi was recaptured by the British only by 20th September 1857. Reason for Sepoy mutiny: racism, discrimination in salaries and the pension. The highest post an Indian sepoy could reach was the Subadar, which gave only the 60 to 70 rupees a month. Racist slurs like Indians were referred to as the pigs. Economic reasons: the compensate for the high war expenditure. The salaries of sepoys decreased and allows for the services outside their region ended in 1856. Socio-religious reasons: initially, EIC recruited sepoys in the line with Indian tradition, that is, upper caste were the recruited, and their caste and the religious customs were respected. But as the empire expanded, different communities joined the EIC army. Therefore, difficult to respect the religious customs of their upper caste. British tried developing a uniform culture in the army as would be decreases loyalty to caste/religions and the increased loyalty to the empire to have better control over sepoys. Therefore, EIC reduced caste privileges like wearing religious symbols, food preference, etc. And the sepoys were the forced to go abroad to Burma, Sindh, and Afghanistan, leading to the caste losses. And those who refused were the punished or dismissed. Also, since the Charter Act of 1813, there was a focus on the spread of Christianity, and Christian missionaries in brackets created in the fear of the conversion. The whole ruler society has feared that their religion was under threat. Forced conversion and the arrivals of the missionaries. Socio-religious reform post 1801 escalated fears of the British wanted to destroy traditional customs like sati abolition, Hindu Widow Remarriages Act, Lax Loki Act, Caste Disability Removal Act, Removal of the Religious Disabilities Act 1850 gave the right of inheritance to Hindu and Muslim converts to other religion. British began taxing mosques and temples. Rumors of the mixing cow and pig bone dust in floor. The cartilage of in-field rifles replaced brown muskets having grease made up of cow and pig fat. These bullets were to be the beaten off before loading. Therefore, sepoys feared that the British wanted to make them lesser Hindus/Muslims for an easy conversion. The revolt began in the Bengal army as high caste identity was still maintained, leading to more unity among sepoys. Political reasons: the majority of sepoys in the Bengal army were from the Awadh, and nearly even family in Awadh sent a member to the EIC army. Annexation of Awadh was seen as the betrayal and the hurt the loyalty of the sepoys. Agrarian regions. British did a summary settlement in Awadh determined the land revenue demands without the proper field survey, leading to the high land revenue demand. In the northwest provinces, field surveys were improperly leading with the high land revenue demands. When the peasant could not pay land revenue, they lost land in the government auction. Peasant become the indebted to moneylenders and they lost the lands due to the feudality on the loans. Sepoy was a peasant in uniform since he come from a peasant family. Therefore, his loyalty was hurt by the British policy. Therefore, the issue of the cartilage was only a trigger that gave rise of the multiple grievances. Reason for the civil rebellion. Grievances of the feudal elements. Loss of the kingdoms due to the annexation like the doctrine of lapses lead to grievances among ex-ruler and nobility. Therefore, they offered the leadership in the revolt. For example, Nana Sahib in Kanpur was the adopted son of Bajirao II and was denied a pension. He was assisted by the Tatya Tope. Begum Hazrat Mahal in Lucknow, wife of ex-Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, ruled in name of the young son during the revolt. Khan Bahadur Khan, a Rohilla Afghan in Bareilly. Rani Lakshmi Bai in Jhansi, whose adopted son was not recognized as the next ruler. Kunwar Singh of Jagdishpur, Bihar was a big zamindar and local Raja whose estates were taken over. Bahadur Shah Jafar, as the Canning announced in 1956, would now be called a prince and he to vacate Red Fort and shifted the humbler Qutub. Therefore, the losing of status, grievances of Talukadars, application of the Mahalwari settlement in northwest provinces and Awadh lead to the loss of the land/estates where estate as rioth were made legal and the honor leading to the loss of economic status. Their private forts were demolished and their private army was disbanded, leading to the loss of political and military status. British rule of law hurt their social status. Talukadars provides leadership to the revolt. Peasant and artisan. Destruction of the handicraft sector due to the cheaper machine manufactured goods imported from Britain hurt artisan in livelihoods. Landlessness from peasant due to the high land revenue demand and indebtedness to the moneylenders as they lost land in the government auction on non-payment of land revenue and lost land to moneylenders due to the default on loans that were given at very high interest rates. The new British court supported monopoly leaders. Therefore, the moneylenders also become the targets during the 1857 revolt. The goal of the revolt was restored the pre-British order. Reason for the victory of the British in 1857 revolt. Sepoys lacked financial resources, lack of the modern weapons and the training among the peasant. British had better leadership and a strong centralized bureaucracy, army and an effective communication system leading to the efficient decision making and the coordination. Tactical mistake as Sepoy focused on the coming to Delhi. Therefore, the movement did not aspire properly and the defeat of the Delhi meant the defeat of revolt. Lack of the unified leaderships on the Indian sides as there were the multiple regional leaders and no central leadership. Therefore, the coordination suffered. Due to the localized nature of the uprising, British could defeat rebels one after other. The whole EIC army did not revolt. The Bombay and Madras regiments were the quit, while the Punjab and Gorkha actively helped the British. The civil rebellion was limited to the mainly north and central India, and mainly minor participation everywhere. Was the 1857 revolt a war of independence? The colonial view is that the 1857 revolt was mainly a sepoy mutiny due their service-related grievances, and the civil uprising was nothing but mob violence due to the breakdown of the law and order. However, V.D. Savarkar called it the India War of Independence and the fought for Swadharma and Swaraj. Karl Marx also argued that it was a nationalist revolt. The mainstream stand is that it was the much more than mutiny, but modern nationalism was not present, therefore not a proper war of independence based on the modern nationalism. The whole of India did not participate, and those sections that benefited from colonial rule did not participate. For example, Jamindar of the Bengal became a big landlords after the peasant settlement in 1793. Therefore, stayed loyal to the British. Those rulers who did not lose their kingdom stayed neutral. Western educated gained from the jobs created by the British rule and believed that British rule will modernize India. Talukadars who did not lose their estate stayed loyal. In Royatwadi areas like Sindh, Kurg, Assam and Bengal Royat benefited as the made landowners. There was no upper planning, and revolt was the spontaneous bursts. There was no modern alternative in form of democracy. Yes, modern nationalism was absent. However, common enemy was there. Common hatred was there against the disruption brought by the British rule. That is a common feeling that British rule is immoral, a common fear of the threat to religion. Sepoy's declaration in Delhi went to beyond their selfish grievances and listed the following reason for mutiny. There was a high land revenue demand, increased Chowkidar tax, increase in unemployment of artisan and learned men, the toll tax for the travelling on public roads, decrease in the status of state Indian ruling class. Therefore, sepoy were fighting all Indians. The common goal of the restoring moral order was the disrupted by the British rule. Hindu-Muslim unity was there, with belief that Hindustan is for Hindus and Muslims. All agreed among rebels that Delhi should be the capital and Bahadur Shah Zafar as an emperor. Rebels did not desire the dictatorship of an all-Indian monarch that does not desire a 17th century unitary structure but wanted decentralized polity with real power at the provinces level. Therefore, desire a form of federalism. Rebel did not want to artisan, not just out of their the areas, but out of Hindustan. Also, the time where there was a communication between regional leaders, it was a movement of the masses and not elites. Elites were the forced to take up leadership in many cases by those who revolted like Bahadur Shah Zafar, Nana Sahib and Lakshmi Jhansi Ki Rani. Therefore, initiative was of the common man, and in many cases peasant and the artisan continued to revolt. The main initiative was to sepoy, and he was a peasant in uniform. Therefore, 1857 revolt was led by the peasant. Why 1857 revolt is an important watershed in Indian history. Political impact. British become disruptful of Indians and authoritarianism and racism increased. India were now the considered racially inferior and beyond reform, and the British did not want Indians in senior position, therefore did not want to share power with Indians. They wanted a stronger control over India. However, this frustrated educated Indians who wanted a share in power, and this anger led to the starting modern nationalism based Indian national movement. EIC was the blamed for the mismanagement of Indian affairs, and public pressure in Britain increased in favor of the ending absentee sovereignty. As the real sovereign, the British government ruled India through an agent EIC. Therefore, Government of India Act of 1858 ended EIC rule and declared the Queen Victoria as the sovereign ruler of India, with the direct rule over British India and the paramountcy over Indian princes. Therefore, Queen was now the empress of Indian, and Mughals rule ended legally with Bahadur Shah Zafar began deported to Burma and prisoned off. Queen's proclamation of November 1858 promised religious tolerance and that Indians would be governed as per its customs and tradition. Therefore, a spirit of Christianity and socio-religious reform took a back seat. Class 17. Political and administrative impact of the 1857 revolt. The Governor General of Bengal was replaced with the Viceroy. Administrative impact. Now there was a focus on effective policy and intelligence. 1860 Police Commission led to the Indian Police Act of 1861, which set up the police structure and function, which continued till 1947 with the title little change. Indian Police Act of 1861. The state police concept was implemented properly throughout British India. Provincial police under the Inspector General, who reported the Governor/LG. District police under the Superintendent of Police, who reported the DC/DM. Therefore, the first time a proper hierarchy of specialists with the proper chain of the command was implemented. In 1857, a police Raj was created and Indians were excluded from all senior positions. Civil servant. The civil servant service exam was introduced by the Charter of 1853 and Indians could give the exam. The exam was held in London, and after 1857 it was ensured that the simultaneous exam is not held in India. The maximum age was kept low between 19 to 23. This was to prevent Indians from clearing the exam. Finally, Indians' national movement pressure led to exam in India. First exam was held in 1922 in India, and decision was Government of India 1919. British military. After the 1857 revolt, the Peel Commission led to the following change: the prevent homogeneity by having the heterogeneous mass of different castes in a regiment. This was to prevent caste-based bonds of unity among sepoys like in the Bengal army. In the 1857 revolt, prevent interaction between regional army unit to the prevent pan-India unity among regiments. British benefited from the lack of unity between their regional armies in the 1857 revolt. Now recruitment was done on basis of race, and the idea of a marital race started by the British, that is the Jats, Rajputs, Sikhs, and turned as the marital races who were loyal, courage, and goods fighter, but the lacked leadership skill given the British. Therefore, marital races and those regions which stayed loyal were the preferred in the recruitment. British focused on the building a culture of the loyalty to salt and promoted the idea of the sacrifice for the employers for the honor of one community. Now the British maintained a large standing army, that is an army in peacetime. British ensured a list 1:2 between European and Indians in army. Now Indians in senior military position. No Indians in senior military position. There was a high use of British army against Indian national movement and peasant revolt. Also, British wanted to ensure that sepoy did not influenced by INM. Therefore, they were kept in barracks as much as possible. British imperialistic ideology, white man's burden. The idea among Western Europeans is that they are senior citizens and therefore have a responsibility to civilize the rest of the world. This belief is strengthened due to the Enlightenment, scientific revolution, and industrial revolution, capitalism, etc. Orientalism dominated till 1813. The Oriental implies relating to the East. Orientalistic believed in the greatness of ancient Indian civilization and therefore wanted to study Indian scriptures, language, literature, etc. William Jones argued in favor of the kingship ties between Indians and Europeans. He argued that Indians and Europeans' language are part of the same family and therefore Indian civilization is at par with European civilization. The supported Aryan invasion theory. However, Orientalism supported colonialism as the degradation in the recent past argued Orientalistic and the white man's burden was to be restored the glory of ancient times. The responsibility to restore the golden past was to be with the British and not with the Indians who were seen as the incapable of leadership. Aryan invasion theory implies that event the great power was the product of the West and therefore the supported culture colonialism. The argued of the kingship had the benefited of the decreasing opposition to colonial rule. Orientalists believed in the ruling India the Indians way because since the Indians way of life is great thus did not impose the British way of life. Some believed India is not ready for modern British idea, therefore the preventing the negative reaction from the Indians against the British. This also led to less focus on the social reform and administrative and legal reform. Therefore, the Orientalism helped in the smooth transition of power from Indian rulers to British. The authoritarianism of Cornwallis. Great study of the ancient past led to belief among the British that degradation in present is too much. Therefore, attempt should not be restore the golden past but impose the British system. He was an authoritarian who imposed the British system of administration and removed Indian from all senior positions. For example, he was influenced by the English landlordism and the brought permanent settlement in 1793. He was also a racist as he converted the British bureaucracy into a aloof elite. That is, he discouraged the intermingling of EIC officials with the Indian and supported separationists. Indians were now not allowed in the great colonies of the British, and EIC were discouraged from having Indians wives. Europeans were banned from the joining EIC services. The reason for this was the racism and the preventing a report of the American Revolution, where the British permanently settled in 13 colonies in 1600 and they revolted against the British Crown. Therefore, he also banned the purchases of land by EIC officials who had Indian wives. The authoritarianism led to the establishment of a strong state which implemented rule of law. By 1813, Orientalism came under attack, and it was argued that it has denied the benefits of British rule to India, as Orientalism prevented British from the modernization of India. Therefore, now push to the westernization of India to achieve the white man's burden, and three imperial ideology emerged. Liberalism. British rule should civilize India and liberate it from the backwardness rather than the British just conquering India. This is by giving India the best idea of the age. They argued for the bringing Western education and implementation British legal system with rule of law, westernization of the Indian economy, and social reform to end social lines. Utilitarianism. It argued that it is only good governance that is good laws, and they are the efficient implementation that can modernize India. James Mill, in his book History of British India, argued that the great Indian civilization is a myth and that what India needs is an effective schoolmaster. The focus was on utility as the supported use of the vernacular instead of the English language to aspire Western education. It also favored majoritarianism, that is, those laws and action are goods that maximize benefits for maximum stakeholders. Evangelicalism, the argued that the main things wrong with India is to be religion. Therefore, the Christianizing India to modernize India. The Charter Act of 1813, led by the Charles Grant of EIC, legalized the entry of the Christian missionary, and there was the push to the conversion to Christianity. The Charter Act of the 1813 ended the monopoly of EIC over Indian trade. Therefore, now the Indian's economy was to be westernized with FDI and the import of the technology via non-EIC British businesses. Post 1857 revolt, high increase in racism and authoritarianism, and now the British argued that Indians are beyond reform. Now India was not just inferior but also different, that is not a keen of Europeans. British become the distrustful of Indians and present sharing of power in any meaningful manner. Class 18th. The land revenue system. The farming system 1772 in Bengal by the Warren Hastings 7385, Governor General of Bengal 1773 to 85. background is equal to 1757 to 65 Plassey plunder plus 1765 plus over extraction of land revenue and some hasty experiments to the maximize land revenue collection. Therefore, by 1770, the golden egg laying goose was killed by the British, that is Bengal. The richest provinces of India suffered from the Great Bengal famine of 1770, where 10 million Indians died. Now, the LON situation was set up, the land revenue become declined rapidly. Therefore, dual government and the indirect rule were ended in, and in 1772 direct rule of EIC began in Bengal. 1772 farming system was introduced to increase land revenue collection, where the right to collect land revenue was formed out, auctioned to the highest bidder, revenue farmer. The revenue farmer is not a farmer. Orientalism was in operation, as this system was similar to the zamindari system. Supervision / in charge of land revenue collection was to be European DC. The result was high exploitation of peasants due to the huge land revenue demand by the FR, leading to no revenue collection at all in the many cases. Tax demand is equal to 100, I have 30, pay 0, per pay 30. In the both cases, on is a defaulter, so I did not pay. The overall rural population was ruined. Now Cornwallis 8693 was sent a GG Bengal with the primary goal of land revenues, as land revenue was now an important source of the funding. Permanent settlement 1793 PS 1793 by Cornwallis 8693. PS was influenced by the landlordism and authoritarianism of Cornwallis. Zamindar was made a legal landowner. Therefore, the first time the property right in land were created, that is the legal ownership of land. Therefore, land was now sellable, leasable, mortgage, commodity, and a land market would gradually come to exist in India. Reason: belief in the landlordism or the agrarian capitalism, or big zamindars who worked for the profit and had the security of property. They would make the big investments in property, and therefore food security would be the achieved, and land revenue will be increased with the increase in production, and trade revenue will increase with the increased production. The settlement was done with zamindar. Reason is equal to ease of collection for government because of a limited number of land owners. Land revenue was assessed permanently at an absolute amount. Land revenue is calculated as the 10 by 11 of produce at the time of settlement. An amount arrived at was fixed forever. Reason is equal to collective to the capitalist for the investing a land, as increase in the production would not lead to land revenue demand. This will lead to the food security and greater agrarian polity. Also, the government will have the certainty of land revenue income. Even it had the highest government, land revenue income is not impacted, because the government gave up the right to increase land revenue. Therefore, the land revenue was decided at the absolute maximum at the time of the settlement, which is 10 by 11 of the produce. Also, the Cornwallis anticipated a decrease in the corruption and the burden of the administration, as the assessment of workload is now zero. Sunset clause. By the evening of the pre-decided date, the zamindars must pay land revenue as the automatically his land will be up for auction to the anyone who agrees to the pay the decided land revenue. Jotedar, those who bought this land in the auction, that is the relatives of zamindars to keep the land within the family and moneylenders etc. Political create a loyal class which was rich and socially influential, therefore leading to the political stability for EIC route. 1857 revolt, Bengal zamindars stayed loyal to the British. Overall impact. In the short term, many zamindars lost India land in the auction as 10 by 11 of the produce was very high land revenue demand. Therefore, in the short term, the growth of the jotedars, but in the long term, stability come under zamindars did emergence loyal to the British. British did not create certainty and the regular inflow of land revenue. Failure is equal to zamindar did not act as the agrarian capitalist as land revenue demand was very high. Therefore, the nothing was left for the investment and agrarian productivity lagged. Impact on the riots is equal to becomes the landless and the rightlessness since the right of the tenants were not recognized by the Permanent Settlement 1793 and all rights in land were vested in zamindars. Therefore, now riots become the tenants well with no occupancy rights for them and the operation of the high rent as the traditional patta system was not respected. Any above that were legal were still collected by the zamindars. Therefore, the security of the property was only for zamindars and not for riots. Regulation 7 of the 1799. Cornwallis had taken away the police power of zamindars. Now, under this regulation 7, zamindars were given back police power, example imprisonment, right to cases, seize property, etc. Peasant revolt forced the British to bring the Rent Act of 1859 in Bengal that gave the occupancy rights to those tenants who had the cultivated land continuously for more than the 11 years and took away the police powers. However, the act was not effectively implemented, leading to the author peasant unrest. Therefore, the finally Bengal Tenancy Act of 1885 brought the relief as the rights of tenants were the properly recognized. Any tenant's right who has the cultivated different pieces of land within the same village and the continuously for more than 12 years who was given the occupancy right. Zamindars used to vacate the tenant from the land before the completion of 12 years, so he does not have the occupancy rights. B.O.B. went to the North Madras and settled permanently. Permanent Settlement 1793 was implemented in Bengal, Bihar, Odisha and North Madras. Rayatwadi Settlement 1792, it was the B grade scheme /scheme B in Sindh, Coorg, Assam, Madras and Bombay. Alexander Need in the Madras experimented with the Rayatwadi, then applied that advice of the Thomas Munro in Madras from 1801 to 07, then reapplied by the Munro as the governor of Madras from 1820 onward. Land owners is equal to Riyot and big land owners suffered the loss of land. Reason is equal to ideology of Munro. Munro was from the Scotland where a yes man farmer had a landowner cultivators was the champion. He was an orientalistic and argued that an ancient time in India there were no very big landowners and the riot that he actual cultivators was the landowners. He also argued that permanent settlement 1793 was not suited for Madras because big zamindars were the unavailable. Deccan always had the problem with finances Anglo-Mysore war. Therefore, the removed intermediaries for financial reason. He argued that making Riyot landowners will increase the political holder of EIC. A common man that is Riyot will become loyal to the state. The settlement was done with Riyot. The periodic revision was possible that land revenue was not permanently assessed. Land revenue could be in percentage terms. Overall impact. Improper field survey lead to unjust land revenue demand that lead to the first riots becoming indebted to moneylenders and conquest the loss of the land due to the indebtedness that default on loans. Second, loss of the land in government auction on the non-payment of land revenue. Third, the Mirasi Das were landowner cultivators who joined the lower bureaucracy of the British, had the police powers and the revenue collection roles and the judicial power and were also corrupt. They bought the best lands in auction. Therefore, they gradually emerged as big landowners, leading to the rebirth of the intermediaries. They oppressed the Riyot so much that at the final British acted in the form of the Madras torture. And the commission reported 1885, which finally brought relief to the Riots. Now proper field survey were done, land revenue decreased, and the Mirasi Das was held accountable. A Mahalwadi system 1822. The settlement was done with the Mahal/estate/district/village community, represented by the village headman/Lambardar. In the most cases, says 90%, or with the Jamindars /Talukadar is available in 10% of the seas. The assessment of land revenue was done at the state level, not per field calculation of land revenue demand. Land revenue was to be collected from the village community, represented by the village headman, and the community decided the individual contribution of each members. Reason is equal to respect the village level autonomy. The landowner is must seize actual Riyot and in the same cases Zamindar. Therefore, the Mahalwar is equal to permanent settlement and Riyotwari in the term of land ownership. Impact. Improper field survey in the northwest provinces and summary settlement in the Awadh lead to unjust land revenue demand and the conquest of landlessness due to the loss of land in the government auction or to moneylenders. In the most cases, Jamindars suffered the loss of the land and therefore the lost economic status. Therefore, Riots and Talukadars come together in the 1857 revolt. Class 19. Regulation of EIC. Parliament come to be regulate EIC affair in India by the 1770s due to the rise of EIC as it was earning huge profit. There was the political rise of EIC, which was a non-state actor and he made the British state anxious, especially after the American War of Independence, where British settlers started revolting against British rule. Therefore, the fear of the same in India EIC. Also, the state wanted a share in EIC profits. Therefore, in 1767, Parliament mandated EIC to annually pay the £400,000 to the public exchangers. The Great Bengal Famine of 1770 hurt the image of the Britain, and EIC conducted the one to against the idea of the white man's burden and the morality of the imperialism. There was a huge corruption by the EIC official who returned super rich from India. In 1770, EIC requested 10 million pounds of loans from the state as it was going bankrupt. Important men like Clive and Warren Hastings wanted a moral relationship with the state to increase their status. The request for the loan acted as an opportunity for the British state to bring EIC under regulation. A selected committee of Parliament 1772. The purpose of the committee was to look into the state of EIC affairs in India and the nature of the relationship between the British state and the EIC regarding territory acquired by the British in India. That is the public affair of the EIC. EIC had the multiple affair like commercial affairs. There it is acted as the company, and the public affair where it acted as a state. Now EIC headquarters in London, which is a court of the directors, can best control EIC administration in India. The result of the committee was that EIC was allowed to continue its monopoly over trade with India. However, COD of EIC was now to the accountable for EIC administration in India. It also led to the Regulating Act of the 1773. Regulating Act of 1773/Lord North's Act. The importance of the act was that for the first time right of Parliament to regulate EIC affair was legally recognized. The act brought the COD of EIC under the supervision of Parliament. Now the COD has so submit all the information received from India in the civil, military and the revenue matters to the British state. However, commercial matters were kept free from supervision as only those areas where EIC acted as the state was regulated. The Governor of Bengal was elevated to Governor General of Bengal. The Governor of Bengal and the Madras subordinated to the Governor General of Bengal in matters of war and peace excepted in emergency circumstances. Governor General of Bengal to collect information on all matters on EIC affairs in India and send the same to the COD of EIC in London. The Supreme Council of Bengal was to created under the Governor General of Bengal with the number/councillors. That is, the Governor General of Bengal was put in the Council of 4 to ensure a democratic decision making, as well as all decisions were to be taken on basis of majority vote of the 4 councillors. The Governor General of Bengal did not vote. The Governor General of Bengal only had a casting vote. The Supreme Court at Calcutta with 1 Chief Justice and 3 normal judges. Regulating Act 1773 barred that taking the gifts by EIC official from Indians, therefore the focusing on anti-corruption. 4 years tenure of the dictators of the COD of EIC, and they could not be the appointed. A 5 year tenure for the Governor General of Bengal could be the reappointed and the could be dismissed in between. The Governor of Bombay and Madras could be dismissed by the Governor General of Bengal if they disobey him on the matter of war and peace. The legislative function was given to the Supreme Council of Bengal. Result of the act. The huge distance between India and England led to the poor supervision due to the poor communication. Centralization of power in the Governor General of Bengal began. Disunity in the Supreme Council of Bengal and lack of the veto powers with the Governor General of the Bengal led to the problem of decisions. The vague wordings of emergency circumstances meant that in the practice meant the Governor of Bengal and the Madras acted independently in the matters of war and peace, like the Treaty of Surat. The conflict between Supreme Court in Calcutta and Jiji Bengal Council due to the lack of the clarity in the jurisdiction of both. The jurisdiction of the Supreme Court was over all British subjects residing in Bengal and their native servants. Supreme Court was the supreme only in the name, as the High Court Act led to the High Court in the three presidencies, and the Calcutta High Court was the Sadar Nizamat Adalat and Sadar Diwani Adalat. Supreme Court in the Madras in 1800 and Supreme Court in Bombay in 1823. Amendment Act of 1781/Bengal Judicature Act /Declaratory Act resolved the ambiguity in the jurisdiction between Supreme Court and Governor General of Bengal. Pitt's India Act 1784. The public affairs of EIC and EIC administration in India were brought under the control of the British Parliament by the setting up the Board of Control (BOC) in London. For the first time, the phrase British possession in India was used, but the issue of sovereignty over treaty under the EIC was still not decided clearly. Board of Control had 6 members, including one of the Secretary of State, President of the Board, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and 4 Privacy Council members. The role of the Board of Control was to be superintendent, direct and control all acts, operations and the concerns related to the civil, military and revenue government of British territorial position in the East Indies. Therefore, COD of EIC was a top authority in commercial matter and the BOC in the public matter. Therefore, Pitt's India Act 1784 set up a system of the double government for EIC affairs in India. COD to send all incoming and the counter-going letters to India to BOC. BOC could pass binding orders and also to the Governor General of Bengal. Governor General of Bengal now had 2 bosses, therefore dual control of the Governor General of Bengal in public affair and not in the commercial affair. Now a principal servants of EIC could be appointed only after the approval of the British Crown, that is Governor General of Bengal, Governor of Madras, Governor of Bombay and Commander-in-Chief of EIC Army. Therefore, EIC was allowed to retain the commerce and patronage. The Governor General of Bengal's council size was reduced to 3 members to solve the problems of indecisions and the lead to the increase in Governor Generals of Bengal's power over his council had to the votes a normal and the casting vote. The governors of Madras and the governor of Bombay also put in the council of three. Governors of Madras and governor of Bombay subordinated to the governor general of Bengal in matters of war, peace, and revenue, and the responsibility of these three now more clearly defined. Class 20. Impact of the East India Act 1784. Dual control of the Governor General Bengal, that is two bosses BOC and COD, in practice mean to no control as he could pay his two masters against each other. Still no veto power to the Governor General of Bengal. Therefore, the decision in the Supreme Council of Bengal continued. A conflict between the Governor General of Bengal and the Commander in Chief of the EIC Army as the decision of war and peace with the Governor General of Bengal, but the right to use the army with the CIC of EIC. Therefore, there was a ban on the imperial expansion via Pitt's India Act 1784 as its started conquest in India's is repugnant to which honor and the policy of the British nation. This was because of the high war expenses 1789 to 92. Third Anglo-Mysore War by Cornwallis, despite a ban on the conquest because Mysore accepted as an exception of British government. Wellesley charged his policy in 1798 and expansion resumed. Amendment Act of 1786. It gave veto power to the Governor General of Bengal over his council in extraordinary circumstances. EIC was empowered to appoint the same man to two posts of Governor General of Bengal and CIC of the EIC Army to end the conflict between the two post holders. Therefore, Cornwallis was the first Governor General of Bengal also to be CIC. Warren Hastings was the Governor General of Bengal. William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India, and the Canning was the first Viceroy. The system of controlling EIC set up by the Pitt's India Act continued until 1858 with the very little chance. The Charter Act of 1793, a hallmark concept of civil war introduced in India. A code of all regulation for governing Bengal was the framed. This regulation defeat with the right of person and property and contained rules and directives, and therefore the burden on the court to follow this regulation while the passing orders. All laws were to be printed in a local language so people know their right, privileges and immunities. The size of BOC decreased, and now the BOC had a president of BOC and two judges member who may not be from the Privy Council. Therefore, the concentration of power in the president of BOC increased. There is a concentration of power in the president of BOC, London, and Governor General in India via different act. The salary of BOC is to be given by EIC, that is by Indians' taxpayer money. The Governor General of Bengal's power over his council and the Governor General of Madras and Bombay further decreased. Subjects of the crown cannot acquire sovereign powers over territory on their own but only on the behalf of the crown. Therefore, the companies was to be exercise political functions, manage public affairs, handle CMR matters and the administration matter in India as an agent of the British state. Charter Act of 1813. The hallmark of the act was to beginning of the project of the westernization of India. The background was the act was the industrial revolution in Britain. Therefore, now the Britain wanted to convert India into a source of the cheap raw materials and the export market for British. The machine manufactured finished goods. The high pressure by the manufacturers and non-EIC traders to end the monopoly of EIC over trade/businesses with India that exists since the 1600 charter. Adam Smith, in his An inquiry into the nature and the causes of the wealth of the nation in 1776, argued for the free market economy. Therefore, the idea of the monopoly can be under the criticism. It was argued that the opening of the Indian economy would westernize the Indian economy through the transfer of technology and FDI, which could industrialize India, leading to the better fulfillment of the white man's burden. Evangelistic Charles Grant, a member of the COD of India, the liberals and utilitarianism argued for westernizing India to fulfill white man's burden as the theme greatest of ancient India civilization was a myth. The provision of Charter Act 1813, the monopoly of the EIC would trade with India ended except for the monopoly of tea and trade with China. Entry of the Christian missionary was legalized and therefore the spread of Christianity began. It talked about the undoubted sovereignty of the British Crown over terrestrial possession in India. The goal of the British rule was defined as the moral and the spiritual upliftment of India. Therefore, now there was a push towards the Christianity, towards education and socio-religious reform. Therefore, the Charter 1813 was the benchmark for the westernization of India. Charter Act 1833, St. Helena Act. This is a landmark in the constitutional history of India. As treaty with EIC in India increased and as the inflow of Britishers since 1813 increased, therefore a need for the uniform law and administration in the whole of British India was felt. Therefore, Governor General was the relevant to the Governor General of India with the direct control over all the British Indian civil, military and revenue matters. The Governor General of India in Council was empowered to make law for the whole of British India, and these laws supply to all persons. The Governor General of India became the executive head of British India, and now there was the decentralization of legislative and executive authority in the Governor General of India. Legislative power of the Governor of Bombay that Madras were taken away. Therefore, the decentralization that began in 1773, peacocked in 1833. One law member, Thomas Macaulay, added to the Governor General of Indian Council. A grain of the separation of power was introduced with the Governor General of Indian Council. A law commission was set up under Thomas Macaulay for the codification of law, which was completed by the 1837. However, the deliberalization and the updating continued, and full implementation was done after 1857 in the form of the Civil Procedure Code 1859, the Indian Penal Code 1860, the Criminal Procedure Code 1862. EIC lost its monopoly of trade with China and tea trade in India. Therefore, the commercial function of EIC ended. EIC now only had a political function, as the agent of the British Crown. BOC supervisory power extended to all administrative affairs in India. President of BOC, now the called Ministers of Indian Affairs. Judicial opened to Indians. Lower civil service is now open to Indians. The Charter Act of 1853. This revenue that the charter, but not for the 20 years and only till the parliament otherwise specify. Big blow of the EIC, as now the patronage of EIC was ended as the civil service exam was introduced by the Charter 1853. Separation of power was introduced within the Governor General Council as six more legal members were added. Since Indians could give civil services, example sovereign converted civil services opened for Indians. The Government of India Act 1858 administratively more continuation than change. The President of BOC was replaced by the Secretary of State for India and now be Central Authority and Director of Policy for India. BOC was replaced by the Indian Council of the Indian, which was to have 15 members and was headed by the SOS for India. Dual control of the Governor General ended as he now the reported only to SOS for India. Governor General replaced by Viceroy. No change in power of the Governor General. The sovereignty of India now with the British Crown. Bahadur Shah Zafar prisoned off to Burma. The policy of the subordinate insulation was replaced by a policy of the subordinate union. Therefore, Indian rulers were the legally part of the British Empire in India via the Royal Titles Act of the 1876. Queen was empowered to take the title of the Kaisar-e-Hind in the 1877 in Delhi Darbar. At Queen's victory, got coronated as a Kaisar-e-Hind. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe our channel and share with 5 friends. Thank you very much.